Welcome back to Red Recapped. Today's movie is Killing Them Softly, released in 2012. There will be some spoilers in the following, so let's begin the film without further ado. The film begins in New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, during the 2008 presidential election. The economy is in shambles, and crime is at an all-time high, setting the tone for the film's themes of economic inequity and corruption. The plot revolves around two small-time thieves, Frankie and Russell, who are irritated when Russell arrives late, carrying nearly a dozen dog leashes. Frankie introduces Russell to a middleman, Johnny Amato, who goes by the alias Squirrel and wants to employ robbers. Russell's bowels irritate Squirrel since he stinks from not bathing and consuming marijuana on a daily basis. Squirrel insists that Frankie find him another one since the last time Frankie hired a guy to do his dirty work, he spent nearly a decade in prison. Frankie meets Russell again a few days later, who only has one dog. Russell survives by stealing purebred dogs and selling them in Florida. Russell boasts that he doesn't need Squirrel's offer since he generates enough money from the dogs to start a drug business and has a girl waiting for him to come home and copulate. However, Frankie wants to accept the opportunity, so Russell directs him to learn everything he can about the position from Squirrel. If Russell still wants to do it, Frankie agrees to do it. So, that day, Frankie meets with Squirrel and learns that they are stealing a poker game. Frankie understands that card games are guarded by mobs and that only idiots will attempt to rob them. Frankie claims that while he will have money once the task is completed, he will have to constantly glance over his shoulder, waiting for these thugs to kill him. Squirrel, on the other hand, is certain that they will not be suspects because they will know who committed the robbery the moment it occurs. A flashback reveals that a man named Marky Trapman ran the high-stakes poker game 4 years ago. However, after seeing all of the cash, Marky becomes overly greedy and successfully robs his game. If another theft occurs, Marky will be the leading suspect. Following the initial robbery, the mob hired a hitman named Dylan to figure out who the mastermind was. Marky was mercilessly interrogated, but the game restarted when no proof was found to throw him behind bars. However, one night, Marky bursts out laughing before confessing to the mob about his role in the theft, admitting that he was too stupid to rob his game. The mob, however, laughed it off because they all adored Marky and assumed he was joking. This is why, if the poker game is robbed for the second time, Marky will be the first person they think of. However, regardless of what other crooks think of their idea, Squirrel wants the job done quickly. The picture then shifts to Frankie driving with Russell, who has accepted the opportunity. Russell and Frankie arrive at a bar after surveying the room layout, the number of players, the amount of money wagered, entrances, exits, and potential barriers and hazards. The duo disguises themselves using masks, uses gloves to prevent leaving fingerprints, and carries guns for defense. They enter the bar from the back alley and enter the poker game through the rear door once they are ready. When Frankie and Russell enter the poker room, they draw their weapons, declare that they are robbing the game, and order everyone to stand still and place their hands on the table. Russell approaches and follows Marky, who tries to prevent them from making a terrible mistake while obtaining the money. Meanwhile, Frankie keeps watch at the door to ensure that no one leaves. Russell and Frankie soon gather all of the money from the players and dealers, stuffing it into duffel bags. Frankie and Russell exit the poker room with the money and flee the building through the back alley. They take off their masks before driving away. The morning following the Mafia robbery, a professional enforcer or hitman, Jackie Cogan, arrives on the scene, where he meets with a mysterious man known as the driver, who was recruited by the mob to investigate and execute the people responsible for the robbery. Dylan recommended Jackie to the driver since Dylan was unable to handle another case. The driver and Jackie talk about the crime 4 years ago, and Jackie says Marky isn't stupid enough to rob the poker game twice. So Jackie hypothesizes that another guy must have known Marky had done it before and planned to make him the fall guy. The mob wants Jackie to beat up Marky just enough to get him to talk, but not too much. Jackie, on the other hand, knows that even if Marky is innocent, the mob will ensure he was not involved in the robbery before killing him because they are harsh and unforgiving. Later that night, two men, apparently hired by the mob, ambush Marky and force him into their car. As they arrive at an empty road, Marky remains calm and swears to God that he knows nothing about the robbery. However, given his previous confession, the men refuse to believe him and begin beating him up, which is really rough and nasty. Marky is left in the rain, laying on the ground, terribly battered and bruised after many punches to his face and torso. Russell is spotted the next day stuffing a little item into a locker. He appears uneasy and nervous as he checks to see whether anyone is looking at him. Not long after, Frankie comes to a train station to pick up Russell, who likely fled following the robbery. They arrive at Russell's house, where he injects pills into his veins and almost falls asleep while speaking with Frankie, who keeps waking him up to resume their chat. Russell intends to go to Montreal as a result of their recent illegal deed, But Frankie assures him that he need not worry because Marky is nearly dead from being beaten up. Russell learned this from a buddy while he was in Florida selling dogs. However, Frankie becomes agitated when he finds Russell has spoken with a Dylan employee. Russell swears he didn't say anything to his friend, but Frankie is concerned because Russell has a habit of forgetting what he said or did while high. Indeed, Jackie informs the driver that Squirrel has hired 2 minor thieves to loot the poker game. This friend went to Jackie and told him about his run-in with Russell on the way to Florida. The driver goes on to explain that Marky contacted him from the hospital because he had broken ribs, a broken jaw, a broken nose, shattered teeth, and a broken spleen. Even though Marky is innocent this time, Jackie argues that he must be gone since the people on the streets know he has done it before. If all Marky has gotten is a beating, they might consider robbing the mob. Jackie agrees to strike Marky, but he wants his friend to finish Squirrel as well. Jackie doesn't want to deal with the emotional nonsense that comes with killing someone he knows since he prefers to execute them quietly and without emotion. The driver is hesitant because the other hitman is pricey, but Jackie strikes a deal to contact him for $15,000. The next day, Jackie goes to a bar with his friend Mickey, who has just returned from New York. Jackie can't help but witness Mickey being exceedingly disrespectful to the poor waiter, but he stays silent. He listens as Mickey describes how his wife served him with divorce papers after he refused to change and spent 5 years in prison. He realized she was having an affair, but he didn't blame her or her partner because he was beyond help. Mickey shifts the subject, as if he hadn't already filled the air with tension, and asks Jackie about what has occurred. Jackie reveals to him that he will hit Squirrel before killing the others later that night. In the next scenes, Jackie sees a recovering Marky get into his car and drive away in the distance. Jackie follows him, his face solemn and attentive. Jackie doesn't waste any time and shoots Marky, the bullet shattering the window and penetrating his right cheek through his brain. Jackie uses all of his rounds to kill Marky. As if that weren't enough, Marky loses control of his automobile and is hit by an approaching vehicle, totaling his car and throwing his corpse through the windshield. The next day, finishing a hookup with Mickey criticizes the prostitute. Jackie can't help but notice Mickey is intoxicated and upset as he tells Jackie about his wonderful marriage ending in a painful divorce. He slams Mickey to the ground and reminds him that he was hired to kill a man, not to whine about his love life. Jackie wishes he could help his pal, but this is not the time. Mickey, on the other hand, irritates him by refusing to cooperate. So Jackie tells him forcefully that he will call in 5 hours and that if he still doesn't do his job, he will alert the police about Mickey's whereabouts so that he may be returned to prison. Jackie then departs to meet with the driver. He tells the driver that Mickey up with prostitutes. Also, Mickey's divorce rendered him useless in the criminal world, and now he must devise another way to end Squirrel's life. Meanwhile, Russell returns to the railway station and discovers 2 men watching his every move. Regardless, Russell gets the box from the locker and walks away when the cops arrive at the door to arrest him. They invoke Russell's Miranda rights, but he is too high to comprehend everything and defy the authorities. The news of Russell's imprisonment spreads quickly, and Frankie is now terrified because he thinks it's only a matter of time until the Mafia kidnaps him and Squirrel. Later that day, Jackie meets an unknowingly inebriated Frankie at his regular bar and inquires as to where Squirrel will be tomorrow night. Frankie's eyes are filled with fear, and his lips are shaking as he tries to remain cool and play innocent, pretending he doesn't know. He holds back his tears as Jackie threatens to call Dylan so he knows who he is speaking with. Frankie has no choice but to inform Jackie that Squirrel has mentioned seeing a girl and that he will be home the day after tomorrow. However, Jackie informs him that he will not be returning home since Frankie will accompany him as they pursue Squirrel next night. Frankie declines and panics, knowing that Squirrel will undoubtedly pursue him the next time he sees them. If he doesn't cooperate, Jackie threatens to kill him before going for Squirrel. So tomorrow night arrives. Frankie pulls down in a dark and quiet neighborhood, attempting to derail Jackie's work by blurting out rubbish about how a criminal middleman is a wonderful guy. Frankie makes Jackie chuckle by noting that Squirrel is just one of many misunderstood men who is a wonderful husband and father to his children. Jackie, on the other hand, is determined to complete his task. Soon later, Frankie recognizes the approaching car and attempts to convince Jackie that Squirrel does not own it. Jackie can tell he's lying by his body language and the way his eyes avoid his glances. Squirrel exits the vehicle with a lovely woman, likely his lover. Jackie observes them as they enter the building before snatching the keys, suspecting Frankie will drive away and abandon him as he departs. Hacky stands at the passenger seat, his rifle raised over the hood, waiting for Squirrel. Squirrel, as planned, exits the premises alone and walks to his car when Jackie fires a shot through the window. Jackie walks over to discover Squirrel bathing in his blood from the severe hit because he doesn't see him moving or crawling. That does not satisfy Jackie, so he continues to shoot at Squirrel even after he has ceased moving and breathing. He then returns to the car and hands Frankie the keys. Frankie speeds up after witnessing Jackie viciously and bloodily executing Squirrel. Frankie refuses to slow down, despite Jackie's repeated requests. So Jackie compels him to pull over to the side of the road and take the wheel. Jackie advises Frankie to wipe the car to remove their fingerprints before getting into his car and driving home. After ensuring Jackie departs the car, Frankie takes the driver's seat and prepares to drive home when Jackie shoots him in the head. Of course, it isn't enough, so Jackie shoots 3 more bullets into Frankie before fleeing, wiping his fingerprints all over the automobile. The bodies of Squirrel and Frankie are placed into the morgue freezer the same night, presumably to be cleaned up. Meanwhile, Jackie meets with the driver at a bar to inform him that the task has been completed. The driver then hands Jackie an envelope holding his cash, which he takes to the restroom with him since he needs to pee. Soon later, Jackie reappears, visibly irritated since the envelope only includes $30,000 in cash. The contract was $15,000 for each individual, and he murdered all 3. The driver urges him to take it on Dylan, but Jackie informs him that Dylan died from an illness that morning. The film concludes with Jackie asserting that America is a business rather than a country, commenting on capitalism, greed, and corruption. He then demands that the driver pay him, and the film ends. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the video.